I got a phone call on I don't know if it was like a Friday morning, something like that, from Dr. Tom Mackey, who was our Dean of Management at the time. And he says, hey, we got some people coming in from Katrina. They need more help. He says, I need for you, he said it like this, he goes, I need for you to find nurses to go to the Red Cross Center by this time of the day today, because we need everybody Red Cross trained that's going over there by this time, because by this time tonight, they will be arriving. My students were already RNs because most of them were graduate students. So I started calling them. They're all ER people, so they were all ready to go. Okay. And then I started calling people from other schools. I started calling people that I knew, other faculty members, and people that I knew at some of the hospitals, said, look, this is what we're doing. So a large group met with me, and then from there they told us, okay, it's time to go to George R. Brown. We started off with developing a triage area, developing, so that we could assess what was going on, of course, and then a registration, because we didn't know who was coming in, how it was going in. So literally it was about building a center. It wasn't, which was going to incorporate everything from clinic to emergency to all of the above. And little by little, people started trickling in. And some people, they would get assessed initially by a nurse, find out what was wrong, get registered. Then we were slowly starting to identify areas where people needed to be seen. So like there needed to be a pediatric area for the kids. There was pregnant moms. We needed to have an area that was near the kids area for the pregnant moms. We needed an area specific for psychiatry, because there was a lot of people that came in very distressed, or people that hadn't been on their medication for a period of time. There was one, I'll never forget this one woman comes in, and she's just real stoic, real quiet, and she's holding her hands kind of like this. And I said, I was assessing that day, I was at triage that day, and I'm looking, I said, are you okay? She said, oh, yeah. I'm like, well, can I look at your hand? And she pulls up her hand, and her hand is like completely swollen and purple. She had a broken hand. This is like 5 days later. One of the pharmacies showed up with a van, with a like 18-wheeler, really. It wasn't a van. And then we needed people to get films so that we could kind of triage them a little bit better. And then a radiology truck showed up, where they were doing radiology within the George R. Brown in a contained 18-wheeler container. And then an eyeglass company shows up. And 10 years ago, we didn't have the tracking information that we have today. Memorial Hermann started bringing in a computerized system that was, of course, at that time it was beautiful, because at this point now we were being able to track who we were sending where. And when that was the hardest part, was when people were trying to find family members. Because at this point there was so much displacement that, I think there was a couple of cases in which 2 or 3 families actually came back together there at the George R. Brown, because they had been somehow displaced, and then all of a sudden here they found themselves again. Keeping sanitation was George R. Brown and the city's responsibility, and it was amazing that with that many people, with that many illnesses, that nothing broke out. That's another godsend when you think about what happens in epidemics, pandemics, situations like this where people are evacuated, where you have all these huge numbers of people coming together. All of the bad things that could have happened didn't, because you had the right people doing the right job. If I'd say that there was anything that was amiss, was communication from within, because we didn't have a walkie-talkie system. That was hard because of the different, and the reason, from what I remember, one of the reasons for that had to do with how many different channels there were, and how many different, the police, fire, public health, everybody had so many different, channels that they were on, that it was very difficult for us to find one that was just appropriate for the setting that we were in. 10 years later, we will never forget the loss. And then I'll be honest with you, even today, 10 years later, there's people that we see in our ERs that are still displaced from Katrina. They never got to go home.